right, so this is going to be a short and sweet video on addressing the problems with the RSX return fuel system. The reason why I wanted to address this is because online you see write-ups everywhere. And although, when the write-ups were written, they were innovative at their time and they thought they were right, but I'm going to update this. Those write-ups have had issues for years and years and years. So this is kind of an old school setup because now you use PTFE lines. But yeah, I just wanted to address even like Club RSX, you'll see write-ups on how to redo the fuel system, and I followed those back in the day and did all that. But I ran into issue after issue, and I'm going to show you real quick because I solved this problem like over 10 years ago, but I didn't, and you can see on my older videos I addressed the issue too, but I just want to make this a short video and update it. See, those write-ups needed to be updated. They're wrong now, but at the time, you can get by and it kind of worked, but there was issues with it. The way I did it is I solved all those issues myself. And I'll go over them. So on this fuel pump right here, the RSX fuel pump, bolts in because that's how it's supposed to be. But this is a Skyline fuel pump in here, and they actually bolt in stock. So that's why I cracked it open so you can see in there. Let me see. So you can see how I have it. I'm gonna try to fix this. So you can see right there how I have it just clipped on. So it fits just like stock. So one of the issues, there's 4 major issues with this that need to be addressed and updated. So what people do is they end up like cutting here or cutting here, putting holes in here, and then zip tying this thing in. You don't need to do that. This thing bolts in completely stock. Same with the RSX fuel pump. You don't need to cut it or do any kind of stupid stuff. Even if you have a Walbro, you should do it like this. Put the clip in, hook everything up together. Even on the Skyline, the factory fit or clip fits with just a slight modification to the plastic, which you can see on my older videos. I'm not going to go through that. But yeah, that's how the return line runs, and then it goes up in here to this feed. Yeah, if I had to do this nowadays, you couldn't buy like universal PTFE lines like you can nowadays. It's a lot more common. They did this a long time ago. So the other problem, I'll go over the first problem. So the first problem is when you cut in here and you drill holes in here, this thing is a bowl. It fills up with fuel, and you can see the fuel pump goes in there, and there's like a little sock in there that sucks up the fuel. You don't want to have any holes here because the fuel pump won't, or the bowl won't fill up all the way. It'll leak out these holes right here. So you don't want to put holes in there. That's the one stupid thing that people do is they cut and drill and put zip ties. You don't need to do any of that. If you do it like this and just clamp it right there with the fitting, you don't have to do any of that stuff. The second problem it has is this right here. This needs to be closed. So this goes up here into, it has an OEM. So up in here where I'm putting my finger, that is the OEM fuel filter. There's an internal fuel filter. So when people say, oh, the K-Series doesn't have a fuel filter. Yes, it does, because I smashed these open with a hammer to see what it looks like. I cut it in half, see what it looks like inside. There is a paper filter in here. When you do the bypass right here, you need to close this. A lot of people leave this open. I just cut off a bolt, put it in there. The reason why, and this is the most detrimental to the whole thing, it creates a random lean spike. So when you're tuning your car, you'll have no idea. You'll just suddenly get a random lean spike out of nowhere, and you won't be able to figure out what it is. It drove me crazy. It took me like, I think, a couple months to figure out what the problem was. And it's this right here. You leave this open, it sometimes will take in air if the tank is low, and you'll randomly get a lean spike and you won't know why. But the dangerous part about it is when this thing's submerged, and this goes up pretty high so you can see the fuel tank, is if this isn't covered right here, you'll get air up in here and it'll create a random lean spike in your fuel. And when you're on turbo, you definitely don't want that. But yeah, that's the main issue with that right there, is that lean spike. You do not want that. So you make sure that you plug this. So the third thing I'm going to address, another issue, is this right here, the return jet. This was designed, so another thing with the holes right here, this bowl was meant to be filled up. So when people were doing this mod and doing it on Club R.S.H.L.Y.T.E, you would get to about a quarter tank of gas and you would just run out of gas. That was the issue with this. It was because people were cutting holes into this and they weren't running the return jet. So you can see right there, I have the return jet, but you just can't run it as is. You have to drill into it with 1/8, and you got to be careful because you can go through the other side. So I heated it up and pushed it through, and then opened it up to 1/8 going this way. So when you do this, you have to open it up here 1/8 and then open it up here 1/8. And that, otherwise, if you don't do this and open it up, your fuel pressure will be stuck. So like a lot of the Hondas that run around 50 psi of fuel pressure, I was stuck at like 70 and I had an external fuel pressure regulator. I tried to turn it down and it wouldn't go down because this is a restriction. You want to open this up. So what people were doing before is they were just bypassing this whole thing and like running the hose into here. You don't want to do that. You want it to spray in here and fill it up. So when people were just doing these mods, they were doing them all wrong and passing around the information. I mean, you can get by like that, but you're going to have all these issues. This runs like OEM. This is OEM. I can run this thing down until the car runs out of gas and it's fine. But since I'm all-wheel drive now, I'm not using this. I'm selling it. So, yeah, I'm just saying this system, the way I designed it, fixed every single problem with that. The lean spike right here, the fuel running out of fuel at a quarter of a tank, it fixed all that, drilling into here. So the last issue is the actual fuel pressure regulator with this, which normally sit right about here. You just bypass it. So you bypass the OEM fuel pressure regulator and you want to run an external fuel pressure regulator towards the engine. Mine, I'm using a rising rate 1-to-1. So if you're turbo, use the 1-to-1 rising rate. If you're not turbo, regular fuel pressure regulator is fine. Don't use a stock one because it creates another restriction. And that restriction does the same thing. Your fuel pressure will be stuck. So when I first did this, I had to take this thing out like 3 or 4 times. Like, why is my fuel pressure not going around? And you can't really tune it properly like that. So yeah, just bypass it. And then if you're doing this now, replace these with PTFE. The reason why you want to place them with PTFE is because they're flexible. This thing is a pain in the ass. You have to push it down. To get into the gas tank, I have to sometimes pop these ends off, get it in there, push it in there, and then pop these on when it's in the tank. So this was just really old school. And if I could do PTFE and I was keeping this, that's what I would replace it with, the updated lines. I would probably just keep this the same because these are Gates submersible lines right here. These are Gates lines. They're very expensive, but they're just outdated. But if I had to do it, I would just leave this alone. As long as it's plugged, it's good. So you could use just a Gates hose here, plug it, or PTFE if you can find a way to plug it too. But yeah, that fixes all the issues with this right here. I mean, you don't have any problems doing it that way, and it fits like stock factory. It runs like factory, and then I can use my factory line here. But now that I'm all-wheel drive, I basically did the same thing, but on my CRZ fuel pump assembly, I did the same thing. So you can just copy this to any car, and that's a Honda. And this works because it's all the same principle. So if you guys are looking at write-ups, definitely fix it and do these mods, and you'll have a way better return fuel setup, especially if you're turbo, you need it. But I thought I'd update this for people, so have a good day.